I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Why haven't we returned to the moon? If you've ever wondered this, you're not alone. It's been 50 years since the first moon landing in 1969, and no one has stepped foot on the moon since 1972. NASA had 6 successful manned moon landings in a 3-year span to win the space race, although they were a step behind the Soviets at almost every other turn. But with less technology than you're using to watch this video, they managed to put men on the moon. So why can't we do it again? In this video, I'm going to go over 5 reasons why we haven't returned to the moon and why we probably will not in the near future. And before anyone says that the moon landing never happened, this video is going under the assumption that it did happen. The first reason that we have not returned to the moon is money. The entire Apollo program, which is the NASA program that went to the moon, cost $25.4 billion. That's over $100 billion today, adjusted for inflation. NASA's entire budget for 2019 is $21.5 billion. Additionally, with today's technology, a 2009 NASA report estimated it would cost $50 billion to go to the moon, which is well beyond their current budget. With these numbers, some may argue that it would only take a few years' budget to get to the moon, but NASA has many other programs to fund. And they are a bureaucratic government agency, so they're not great at cutting costs for the sake of efficiency. Financially, it just is not currently feasible for NASA to put the money into another moon landing. The second reason that we haven't been back to the moon is technology. This reason seems a little backwards considering technology has advanced in mind-boggling ways since the moon landings. We've invented the internet, electric cars, and smartphones in the decades since the Apollo missions. But we do not have the technology from 50 years ago anymore. We can't manufacture the rockets that were built half a century ago because the factories no longer exist. An interesting way of looking at this is like cars. There are car buffs who know every part of a 1969 Mustang inside and out. They could take one apart and put it back together, running like it did fresh off the assembly line. Only that assembly line is gone, and no matter how well they know the car, no one could build another one from scratch. The same factories that existed back in the 60s would have to still be around to reproduce parts for the rockets and landers that got us to the moon. And because they do not, we can't just remake the equipment. Reason number 3 is safety. Because the United States was embroiled in a space race with the Soviet Union, safety was not the top priority during the Apollo missions. This is not to say that NASA was unsafe or threw caution to the wind, but their processes would not have been approved in 2019. Apollo 1 was a catastrophe as the launch rehearsal ended in all 3 crew members dying from a fire found to be caused by an electrical failure creating a spark and the cabin being full of pure oxygen acting as a fuel. Apollo 12 was struck by lightning twice as the rocket flew through the atmosphere, wiping out many electrical systems. However, they did complete the landing on the moon. NASA quarantined astronauts returning after the first few missions because they did not know if space germs existed. And these quarantines would not have stopped a possible pandemic if these concerns were true. In total, 4 people died in the Apollo program, and standards are much higher now, with only 1 spaceflight-related death since the Columbia disaster in 2003. Anyone attempting to go to the moon today would follow a much stricter protocol, and any death would be heavily scrutinized by the media, possibly delaying or canceling the program. The fourth reason we haven't returned to the moon is motivation. As I have previously mentioned, the space race was the driving force of the Apollo missions. The United States wanted to beat the Soviet Union in space technology, and it all came to a head with Apollo 11 landing on the moon. The Soviet Union never completed a manned lunar mission, but they were first to send a human to space, complete a spacewalk, and land a spacecraft on land. As the space race occurred during the Cold War, every new accomplishment was also a step toward missile weapon technology that could be used against another nation. So being ahead was in the best interest of both sides. The space race was deeply rooted in patriotism and, to a degree, nationalism. People wanted their country to be the first to do something in space, partly for their safety, but also because of their love of their country, and that sentiment is not shared today. Most people who want us to go back to the moon, or to Mars, or anywhere in space, don't really care if it's their country doing it alone, as long as it's humans accomplishing something for them to witness. Luckily, we're not in the middle of an arms race that has us living in fear, and we can support collaborative efforts at space travel. Most missions today are international, and the International Space Station has been continuously manned since 2000 by astronauts from America, Russia, Germany, Japan, Britain, and many other countries. The final reason we haven't returned to the moon is aliens. In the Apollo 13 records, the astronauts mention tall, gray human. Just kidding. The real final reason that we haven't returned to the moon is that there is no reason. The only time this gets brought up is when people say, well, if we could go to the moon in 1969, then why can't we today? And the answer is that we went 6 times. There's no reason to endanger human life when we can send robots to collect data that don't require food, water, oxygen, and pressurized suits. We have already set foot on the moon, and no amount of trips would change someone's mind that doesn't believe we have, considering how advanced CGI has become to be able to recreate the scene. NASA is not in the business of proving conspiracy theorists wrong. They exist to pioneer the future in space exploration, scientific discovery, and aeronautics research, according to their mission statement. In January, a Chinese moon rover landed on the dark side for the first time, and no humans were needed to accomplish such a task. So until there is a real need for humans to be on the moon, we most likely will not return. While NASA and most other international government space agencies do not appear to be planning a return to the lunar surface, we still might in the near future. With the rise of private space companies like SpaceX, there is no knowing where they plan to go. And I'm sure that we will eventually make a return, but I'm not going to hold my breath over it being anytime soon. Thanks for watching till the end. This is my first video, so if anyone wants to give any feedback in the comments, it would be very much appreciated.